tenacity that it takes to keep this space going is beyond admirable. And that we have the ability to talk about art here in Loveland at this level is tremendous. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Gotta say so I want to turn the tables a little bit, not a surprise for me, and start with questions instead of me talking about my work. And maybe if you've looked at the work, you get a feeling and that raises a question, or some of you know this work already and want to go a little further, but however that works, people will get information, and we'll still keep it at 7 minutes. Yes?
So do you start with a concept?
Yes. The concept here is Palestine.
Is what?
Palestine. And the genocide in Palestine, and this actually is part of hundreds of pieces of work now at this point that I started right after the massacre in Israel on October 7th. By October 9th, if you followed the news, you could see that this was not going to end, that this was unceasing. And this was also not new. For those of you who know your history, this is a 75-year and beyond 75 years of time. So I ended up making work on a daily basis that was a response to all of the bombing that was happening. And so this started October 7th, and these are just 3 pieces from that, and that started in 2023, and we are now in 2025, and if you're following the dates, you know, they're up to date 500, or, you know, they're 500 days. My background is in abstraction, and that is my love. I was trained as a painter, so Anne Reinhardt and Agnes Martin are the 2 sort of underpinnings of my work in terms of structure. And then my grandfather, who made this prayer book that I had carried around with me forever since he had passed in the 1970s. And I was doing a talk on this work last February, and it's in Italian. He was Italian, and you can tell by the way. And I'm going through the prayer book just before I'm doing, a week before I'm doing the talk, and I'm thinking, you know, and I get this message, and he says, you need to translate again. And so I went back to the book, and I found, as part of the ephemera, the things that he had saved within the prayer book that were religious or oriented religiously, was documentation in Italian from a booklet called the Crusaders' Almanac. If any of you are from the East Coast, that's a Franciscan publication that started in the 1800s in New York and then moved to DC. And in there is the 1948 copy in Italian about the Nakba. And I find this just before I'm supposed to talk about this work. And, you know, I was obviously very taken by what was happening. This is a much larger issue, you know, and people get all nervous and their underwear gets in an uproar about whether or not this is about Palestine or Israel. We know genocide has been going on since the beginning of time, so this is a much bigger issue. And one of the commentaries is, you know, this is sort of a time in our history where we need to start thinking about how we want to treat ourselves, how we want to treat other people. And there also is something very interesting. Interesting is a funky word, but it is, because the things that we are witnessing now, we have never witnessed before in the way we are witnessing them, and it is setting a standard about what's going to happen for who knows how long, right? So, I was very taken by what was happening, but when I found this thing from my grandfather, I thought, wow, the writing's in the book. I need to continue this. It's not, obviously, it's not about me. It's about something much larger. And as a visual artist, the larger question is, what is our role? Right? What is our role as a visual artist? How do we talk about that? Or how do we make images? Because my job is material culture. As a visual artist, your job is material culture. You're producing things that are visual. We talk about them, we write about them, but it's really not about that. Because when we're all gone, that's what's left, right? So, that's the answer to that question. A long answer. Jenny, yeah.
So I've seen your work really, really big. And
Oh, say that again.
I've seen your work really big. And like the Hatton Gallery? Big works.
Big words. Oh, yeah, the graphite ones. Yeah, the graphite. Okay.
So talk about your decisions like size, material, mill frame, like things that are like generally art, things that we do when we make art. Can you talk about some of the things that choices that you made for these pieces that you moved away from other works?
I was on the way in all of those other pieces to getting to this. No frame, small. You know, the 1960s gave us, if you can't make it bigger, if you can't make it better, make it bigger, so everybody makes these big paintings, right? Intimacy, particularly with this work, is important. You know, you really need to be up against these. They're architectural, the color is very specific. If you watched any documentation, which is, as some of you know, is just so horrific, the nature of buildings and the shattering of the domestic is part of what this is about. And so I just kept moving further and further away from that tradition because I don't believe in that tradition. I don't believe in framing. This doesn't mean that I have this expectation for everybody else. This is how I feel about making art. I think it's visual. I think there shouldn't be frames. I think that these materials also are very inspired by my grandfather's prayer book, which was nothing but tape and pages. He made the book. He used this tape, and when I saw the structure of that book, it became an abstraction for me. I saw it as geometric abstraction. So I've sort of continued with that. It was really interesting when I had another show of this work in Taos. There was one woman who was just really upset about the fact that I installed the work with tape on the wall. And she was like, it just ruins it. Like, the pieces are fine, but the tape just ruins it. And she said, it just looks like you've thrown it up there and it's real slapdash and you can just, and I said, yeah. Like, that's the idea. That right now, the culture that we're living in, you literally, nothing is stopping anybody in this room from taking it and turning it into an icon, or taking it and just ripping the shit out of it. Right? Here we are. It's, you know, we are all here for a temporary period of time. So it's also, needless to say, about impermanence. Small, intimate, impermanent, with materials that, if we think about metaphor, are just about holding things together, like desperately.
Let's take this last question.
One of the reasons I come to things like this is to understand from the artist what their work is about. For me, looking at that, I don't even see anything written about it. And so you saying, well, it's going to last longer than me, and I wouldn't know what it's about. And I'm that curious person that wants to, like, what was she thinking? And what is so I'm grateful to be here. How will it live beyond you if you don't include something about what it's about for us as the viewer?
Pragmatically, I've shown there's writing about it, other people have written about it. So there's stuff. I have a website, I'm on Instagram, I'm doing all that. If we didn't have the writing thing or the discussion thing, I think we would all, one, spend more time with the work. And if you're with any piece of work, I guarantee you, I taught for a really long time, that when you're with that work, you will get the meaning of the work. You may not get the story, but you will get whatever that is. And it kind of goes back to what everybody has said. It's, you know, it's from here, and ultimately you will connect with something, or not, or you look at it and you'll be like, and that's fine. It means that the connection's not there. Does that help a little bit? And then, you know, once I'm gone, it's up to, if there's still such a thing as historians and critics and theorists, it's up to them. My job as a visual artist is to make the work. It's their job to do the commentary, to decide whether it's worth anything or not. That's not it. And that comes from a non-market driven ethos, right? That there's some artists that are market driven, and there's nothing wrong with that. But my personal ethos with making my work is it is non-market driven. So it's up to other people to decide about that.
Wonderful, thank you,